The blizzard had rolled in faster than anyone expected. It wasn't just snow, it was fury from the sky itself, hammering the Montana plains with walls of white that swallowed fences, cattle, and even sound. Jack Callahan could barely see 10 feet ahead, his lantern's light flickering weakly against the storm. But he wasn't the kind of man who ignored his gut, and tonight, it was twisting like a rope pulled too tight. Something was wrong. His neighbor, Thomas Rourke, hadn't been into town for over a week. Normally, that wouldn't have meant much. Rourke was a recluse, bitter since his wife died. But last month, word spread that he'd sent away for one of those mail-order brides from overseas. Folks gossiped about it at the saloon, half in jest, half in pity. Jack didn't like the idea, buying a wife like she was a piece of cattle, but he'd stayed out of it. Everyone lived their own way out here. Still, something about it nagged at him. Tonight, as the storm screamed across the plains, that uneasy feeling turned into a decision. Jack saddled his horse, Duke, against the wind's protest, pulling his duster tight and tucking a rifle under his arm. "If I'm wrong, boy," he muttered to the horse, "we'll just call it a wasted ride." But deep down, he hoped he wasn't too late for whatever was waiting in that darkness. The trail to Rourke's ranch was almost invisible now. Snow piled up against the fences, and the trees along the ridge bowed under the weight. Jack could feel the cold creeping through his gloves, biting into his skin. Every breath burned his lungs. But he kept pushing forward, guided by instinct more than sight. When he finally reached the property, it was clear no one had been tending it for days. The porch light was out, the gate half open, and snow had drifted knee-high against the front door. He swung off his horse and stomped through it, knocking once, then twice, on the wood. No answer. The wind roared back at him like laughter. Jack frowned. "Rourke," he shouted. Nothing. He tried the door, it was locked from the inside. He circled around, his boots crunching through the frozen yard. That's when he heard it. A sound that didn't belong to the storm. At first, he thought it was the wind catching in the barn. But then it came again, faint, muffled, and broken. A cry. Human. Desperate. Jack's heart kicked into overdrive. He ran to the barn, wrenching the door open. Snow swirled inside, blanketing the hay and empty stalls. And there, near the far corner, something moved. It was a woman. She was curled up near a stack of hay bales, wrapped in a thin dress that was soaked through and torn at the sleeves. Her skin was nearly white, her lips blue, her hands trembling so violently that she could barely hold them against her chest. Her eyes fluttered open when Jack knelt beside her. "Hey," he said quickly, his voice gentle but urgent. "You're gonna be okay. You hear me?" She flinched at his voice, shrinking back like a wounded animal. "Please," she whispered through chattering teeth, "don't hurt me." Jack froze. Her accent was thick, Eastern European, maybe Russian or Ukrainian. Her words came slow, like she was fighting to stay awake. He raised his hands slightly. "Easy. I'm not here to hurt you. My name's Jack. I live next ranch over." Tears welled in her eyes as she tried to speak. "He left," he said, "no more wife. He said go away." The words hit him like a punch. "Rourke," she nodded weakly. "Yes, I came for him. He, not want me. Said I was mistake." Jack swallowed hard, anger bubbling up. Rourke had left her out here, in this weather, to die. "You've been out here all night." She shook her head faintly. 2, maybe 3 days. "I walk, then I can't." Her voice trailed off, lost to exhaustion. Jack moved fast. He pulled off his heavy coat and wrapped it around her trembling shoulders, lifting her as gently as he could. She was light, far too light, her body limp against his chest. "You're safe now," he muttered, more to himself than to her. He carried her out into the storm, shielding her with his own body as he climbed onto Duke. The horse shifted uneasily, but Jack's firm voice steadied him. "Come on, boy. We've got to move. Now." Snow lashed at his face as he urged Duke into motion. The wind howled like a living thing, but Jack kept his eyes fixed on the barely visible outline of his ranch in the distance. The woman's head rested against his chest, her breath shallow. Every time she stirred, he whispered, "Hold on. Just hold on." By the time his ranch came into view, his fingers were numb, and his beard was stiff with ice. But she was still breathing, and that was all that mattered. Jack didn't know who she was, not really. But he knew one thing for certain: no woman deserved to be left in the snow to die. And whoever this poor soul was, she wasn't going to be another ghost buried under the Montana winter. By the time Jack reached his ranch, the blizzard had turned the world into a blur of white and silence. The snow came down so thick that even the porch lantern looked like a dying ember through the storm. He jumped off Duke, cradling the unconscious woman in his arms, and shoved open the door with his shoulder. The warmth of the fire inside hit him like a wave, but it barely touched her. She was limp, her face pale and lips cracked, her skin ice cold. Jack's heart hammered in his chest. "Don't you die on me now," he muttered as he set her down on the bearskin rug near the fireplace. He kicked the door shut against the howling wind, threw a few fresh logs into the flames, and grabbed a thick quilt from the couch. Her fingers were stiff and blue. He rubbed them between his palms, trying to get some warmth into them. Then he dashed to the kitchen, filled a kettle, and set it on the stove. The storm outside battered the windows, but inside, he worked with quiet determination, like a man fighting back death itself. When he returned to her side, she was still shivering, eyes half closed. He poured warm water into a basin and began dabbing her face, careful not to startle her. Her lashes fluttered. "Where am I?" she whispered weakly. "My ranch," Jack said, his voice steady but gentle. "You passed out in Rourke's barn. I found you there." Her eyes blinked open, glassy and frightened. "You, from the other farm." "That's right," he nodded. "Name's Jack Callahan. You're safe now." She stared at him for a moment, confusion mixing with disbelief. "I thought I would die." Jack handed her a mug of steaming broth, helping her lift it to her lips. "Not tonight, you won't." As the color began to return to her cheeks, she pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Her voice trembled when she spoke again. "He said I must go. That I was not the woman he wanted. He locked me out." Jack's jaw tightened. He didn't interrupt, just listened, though every word twisted something deep in him. "I came from far," she continued. "From Ukraine. I wrote letters. He sent me money for travel. Said he was kind man, lonely man. But when I came here, he looked at me once, and his face changed. He said I was too young. That I lied. I did not lie." Her eyes filled with tears that she wiped away quickly, ashamed. "He said I was his mistake. Then he drank. He always drank." Jack exhaled slowly, staring into the fire. "And he just left you." She nodded. "When snow came, he said go away. I begged." He slammed door. Jack's throat went dry. He stood up, pacing the room to burn off the anger building inside him. Rourke had always been a bitter old bastard, but this was monstrous. Leaving a woman to die in sub-zero cold because of his own drunken pride. Jack had seen cruelty before, but this was different. He turned back to her. "What's your name?" "Anya," she said softly, as if afraid to claim it. "Well, Anya," he said, kneeling back beside her, "you're not going anywhere until you're warm and strong again. You understand." Her eyes searched his face, wary but trusting. "Why do you help me?" Jack hesitated. "Because someone should've." The fire crackled between them, and the storm outside began to fade, its fury spent. In that small room, time slowed. Jack poured another mug of tea, his rough hands trembling slightly as he passed it to her. She took it, her fingers brushing his, and for a fleeting moment, their eyes met. Two souls, strangers, but both scarred by the coldness of the world in their own ways. As the night deepened, Jack dozed in the chair beside her, his rifle leaning against the wall. When he woke near dawn, the storm had quieted. The soft orange light from the fire flickered over her sleeping face. She looked peaceful now, bundled in one of his flannel shirts, her breathing slow and even. He studied her for a moment, then looked away, uneasy at the stir of emotion in his chest. It had been years since he'd let anyone stay under his roof, years since he'd trusted anyone enough to care. He'd buried his heart under the same hard soil he built his ranch on. But seeing her there, fragile yet alive, innocent and wronged, something old and protective awakened in him. When Anya finally stirred, her voice was a whisper. "You saved me." Jack shook his head, his voice low. "You saved yourself. I just got you here." She smiled faintly, the first trace of warmth he'd seen on her face. "Still, thank you, Jack." He nodded, standing to pour coffee into 2 mugs. "You rest today. We'll figure out what comes next after you've had some food in you." She watched him move around the kitchen, calm, capable, a man of few words but steady presence. Outside, the ranch was silent under a fresh blanket of snow, the sky clearing into pale gold. For the first time in what felt like years, Jack didn't mind the quiet. It wasn't the lonely kind anymore. It was the kind that felt like the beginning of something he couldn't yet name. And as the fire popped softly behind them, both knew their lives had just shifted, in ways neither could yet understand. By the time the storm cleared, the world looked like it had been remade overnight. The Montana plains were blanketed in untouched white, glittering under the cold morning sun. The wind had gone quiet, replaced by the distant creak of trees heavy with snow. Jack stood on the porch, coffee steaming in his hands, watching the horizon glow pale gold. It was peaceful, too peaceful. Because he knew what came next couldn't be ignored. Inside, Anya sat at the small kitchen table, wrapped in one of Jack's old flannel shirts and a quilt that nearly swallowed her whole. Her cheeks had color again, and though she still looked fragile, her eyes held a spark of strength that hadn't been there the night before. "You don't have to go," Jack said finally, turning back toward her. "Not yet, anyway." Anya shook her head slowly. "I cannot stay forever, Jack. I do not want to bring trouble to your door." He set his mug down, leaning against the counter. "The only trouble here is the kind that man caused. Rourke needs to answer for what he did." She flinched at the name, wrapping the blanket tighter. "He is dangerous when drunk. He says things, then forgets. But what if he comes here?" Jack's jaw tightened. "Then he'll regret it." The quiet in the room was heavy. Jack wasn't a man of threats, but when he said something, he meant it. Anya could see that. She looked down at her hands. "You risk much to help me." "Why?" Jack paused. "Because no one helped my mother when she needed it." His voice softened. "She died waiting for someone to care. I'm not letting that happen again." The words hung between them. Anya blinked away tears she didn't want him to see. There was something about his honesty that cut through her fear. He wasn't saying it to impress her, he was saying it because it was the truth. After breakfast, Jack saddled up his truck. "Stay inside," he said. "Keep the fire going. I'll be back soon." Anya rose from her chair, worry creasing her brow. "Where are you going?" "To have a word with Rourke." "Jack, please," she said, stepping forward, her voice trembling. "He is cruel. Do not." He stopped her with a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Anya, the only thing cruel here is what he did to you. Don't worry, I'm not going there to start a fight. Just to make sure he knows he can't come near you again." Her eyes searched his, uncertain but trusting. She nodded slowly. "Then be careful." He gave a faint smile. "Always am." The drive to Rourke's place was slow, the roads were half buried, the snowbanks rising high on both sides. When Jack finally rolled up to the old man's ranch, he could see smoke coming from the chimney. So the coward was home. Rourke stumbled out onto the porch when he heard the truck pull up. His red face and glassy eyes told the story before he even spoke. "What the hell do you want, Callahan?" Jack stepped out, calm but cold. "You left a woman to die in that blizzard." Rourke sneered. "That foreign girl. She ain't my problem. She tricked me. Said she was older. I didn't ask for no child bride." Jack's fists clenched at his sides, but his voice stayed level. "You brought her here. You promised her a home. Then you tossed her out like trash." "She got what she deserved," Rourke snapped. "She's my property. You don't get to tell me." Jack was on him before he could finish, grabbing the front of his coat and shoving him hard against the porch post. The old man's breath hitched as Jack's icy blue eyes bored into him. "She's not your property," Jack growled. "She's a human being. You ever come near her again, I'll make sure you regret it." Rourke froze, the drunken bravado draining from his face. Jack released him, stepping back. "You understand me?" Rourke nodded quickly, rubbing his collar. Yeah, I got it." Without another word, Jack turned and walked back to his truck. The sound of the engine starting was the only thing that broke the silence. When he returned home, the sun was beginning to dip behind the hills. Anya was standing by the window, hands pressed to the glass, watching the fading light. When she saw the truck pull in, relief washed over her face. She rushed to the door as he stepped inside, brushing snow off his coat. "You went," she said softly. "What happened?" "Nothing worth talking about," he said, hanging his hat. "He won't bother you again." Her eyes filled with emotion. "You did not have to do that." Jack shrugged. "Maybe not. But I wanted to." Silence stretched again, comfortable this time. The firelight flickered across the walls, and outside, the snow reflected the last of the golden light. Anya stepped closer. "What will I do now?" she asked quietly. "I have nowhere to go. No papers. No family." Jack looked at her for a long moment. "You can stay here. Help out on the ranch if you want. There's always work to be done, and you'll have a roof over your head until you figure out your next move." Her eyes glistened. "You would do that? For me?" He nodded. "You deserve a chance to start over." Tears welled, but she smiled through them. "You saved me, Jack." He looked away, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "No, Anya. You saved yourself. I just showed up when you needed someone." Outside, the snow began to fall again, soft, gentle flakes that drifted down in silence. Anya stepped to the porch, breathing in the cold air, her heart no longer filled with fear. Behind her, Jack leaned in the doorway, watching her with quiet respect. She'd come to this land searching for a husband, a life that was promised but never real. Yet here, against all odds, she had found something far rarer, a man who treated her not as property but as a person. And under that vast, frozen sky, she whispered a silent vow to herself, she would never be helpless again.